Hi, I'm Rod Kurtz. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrives at the G7 in Alberta following another Russian attack on the Ukrainian capital. We'll get the latest from our Jeanette Rocher at the G7. Plus, U.S. President Donald Trump leaves the G7 to return to Washington amid rising tensions in the Middle East. And Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Thomas delivers some strong words about gas-powered vehicles today in the Commons.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Thanks for joining us. Today was the second and final day of the G7 Leaders Summit in Alberta, and it wasn't without a bit of drama. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived, but only after U.S. President Donald Trump had already left. BCN's Jeanette Rocher is at the G7 in Kananaskis and joins us now. Jeanette, first off, just tell us about Trump's surprise departure.
Well, Rod, no country hosting a large international summit like this likes to see the United States president leave, particularly right now when tensions between Canada and the U.S. are so high, particularly towards President Trump, when all eyes on the world are on him, waiting to see what he's going to do. Because, of course, everyone wants to know where the U.S. stands on issues, particularly trade issues. So Canada and the U.S. are now saying that we might see some sort of a trade deal in the next month. And Trump's departure did leave Prime Minister Mark Carney having to rearrange and juggle the schedule a little bit and salvage some of those discussions that he'd hoped to have with President Trump on issues like the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, ironically, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived right after Trump had left, and there were rumors swirling that Zelenskyy was only making his way to this part of the world because Trump was going to be here, sort of a round two of their face-to-face, if we remember what happened a number of months back in the Oval Office when Zelenskyy left the White House. Unfortunately, those talks didn't get to happen, but Prime Minister Mark Carney met with Zelenskyy, and they talked about the latest Russian attack last night.
I would like to start by condemning, in the strongest terms, the latest outrage, barbarism from Russia, and express my deep condolences and those of the Canadian people to the families in Kyiv who were affected. This underscores the importance of standing in total solidarity with Ukraine, with the Ukrainian people, and we had a discussion last night amongst G7 leaders. The President and I will discuss more. To be absolutely clear, the support will be unwavering until we get a just peace for Ukrainian people.
Really, Ukrainians our families had very difficult night. One of the biggest attacks from the very beginning of this war, 440 Shaheeds, Iranian drones, and 32 missiles, including ballistic. And I was on direct connection during the flight with all the ministers and of course with the chief of air defense, and really it was a big attack on civilian infrastructure, on people, just people, houses and etc. Big tragedy for us, and we need support from our allies, and I'm here, and thank you for the military package. It's important for our soldiers.
Prime Minister Mark Carney promised $4.3 billion towards Ukraine's defense, and that includes $2 billion that would go towards weapons like ammunition, drones, and armored vehicles. And this would count towards Canada's NATO spending towards defense of 2%.
So, Jeanette, what are we expecting in terms of the final communique?
So the G7 leaders are wrapping up the G7 summit with a series of statements. The 7 world leaders were not expected to sign the usual lengthy statement outlining shared views. That is typical at the end of G7 summits. So this joint statement covers issues usually ranging from transnational repression and migrant smuggling to AI and quantum computing. Notably, Rod, there is no statement about Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine, but the G7 leaders did release a statement last night calling for a de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East. Rod?
Jeanette, thanks for all your hard work. Jeanette Roche from the G7 Leaders Summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. Meantime, in the Middle East, Israel is claiming to have killed a top Iranian general as it traded more strikes with its longtime foe. Tehran has not commented on the reported killing of General Ali Shadmani, a person who Israel describes as the most senior military commander in Iran. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says his government knows where Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is hiding, but he doesn't want him killed, quote, for now. Trump was asked about the conflict while returning to the States on Air Force One.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
And then a real end, not a ceasefire. And then
So something that will be permanent.
or giving up entirely.
Is
That's
that
okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible in the next 24 months?
Why not? Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible, yeah. Remember, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon.
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it. Great people, they know how to protect themselves.
And when you say better, what's
We'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard that the gloves are off.
About 80,000 Canadians are in the Middle East in the midst of the Israel-Iran conflict and the war in the Gaza Strip. Global Affairs Canada says that figure doesn't fully reflect how many of them may need help getting out of the region. It hasn't received any reports of Canadian injuries or deaths in the latest conflict. It's also warning against all travel to Iran, Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip, advising Canadians in the Middle East to monitor the news and follow the instructions of local authorities. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas was front and center today during question period in the Commons during a debate on the future of gas-powered vehicles. Thomas confronted the Liberal government, claiming they want to eliminate gas-powered vehicles and leave Canadians with the ability to purchase only electric vehicles beginning next year.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals over here do not believe in the freedom of choice that Canadians should have when it comes to the vehicle that they drive. Right now, they have a mandate in place that makes it so that Canadians will have to buy EVs. They will have to. But that does not fit the needs of Canadian families. And especially at this time when Canadian families are struggling to make ends meet, they cannot afford the additional $20,000 that this mandate will add to their bill when they go to purchase a new car. Right now, this government has an option, and that is to vote with Conservatives to relinquish their ban on gas-powered vehicles. Will they?
Mr. Speaker, what I will do is stand up for our auto workers all across our country. We'll stand up for a strong auto industry. I will stand up to make sure that we're climate competitive and going where the world is moving, which if they actually looked at studies, globally, EV sales are up. So if the members opposite actually care about making sure that we are standing up for our auto workers, I hope that they will stand up with us to make sure that we are protecting the industry.
If the Liberal government is truly going to stand with auto workers, then stop making the very vehicles that they're producing illegal. In my riding, in my community of Lethbridge, a farmer cannot drive an EV to go pick up seed or drive an EV to go harvest their crop. Families in my community need choice when it comes to the vehicle that they will drive. Will the Liberals stand with Canadians and relinquish their ban on gas-powered cars?
Minister de Brusen responded, claiming the regulations say that there is no ban on gas-powered vehicles. In December 2023, though, then Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault laid out regulations that will phase out the sales of gas and diesel-powered vehicles by 2035. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is sharing a harrowing tale about an attempted robbery at his house. At a news conference today, Ford says masked men tried to steal a car from his home just after midnight.
So 4 thugs come racing down my street, masks on, ready to take the car out of the driveway. surprise, surprise, at 12:30, the 2 police cars are there. The chase is on. So they chase him. One guy runs out, takes off. They capture him, and they catch these other guys. But just imagine all the unfortunate people that don't have security there at their house with masks on, and they had all the tools ready to break in and everything, and guess what's going to happen? They're going to be back out. Why don't you guys come over for a barbecue tonight? I'll take care of you better than the police, and thank God the police got you, and I never did. Anyways, that's my rant. I'm sick and tired of the weak justice system that we have. They have to get a backbone, and we need to start throwing these people in jail. This is turning into a lawless society. That's my rant, and that's it.
Ford told the story after criticizing the bail system. He says criminals are running amok and have created a lawless society. Well, after closing, advanced polls have opened today in 3 provincial by-elections. As of today, voters can cast early votes in Edmonton Ellerslie, Edmonton Strathcona, and Olds Didsbury Three Hills. Edmonton Strathcona will be getting much of the attention, though, as NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is trying to win a seat in the legislature. Advanced polling continues until Saturday, January 21st, followed by the by-election on Monday, June the 23rd. Well, after closing last November for a facelift, the Fritz Sick Pool has reopened. The pool was shut down so improvements could be made for accessibility and safety. Sunny Bell, who's general manager with the Canadian Recreation Excellence in Lethbridge, explains what kind of renovations this facility underwent.
Change rooms have more accessibility, showers, toilet stalls, and space for the people that are using them. They've widened the doors so it's more accessible to all that come into the facilities. They've also added an all-accessible changing area so that we can accommodate people that should require an aid or assistance getting changed, or a private place to change. Fritzick Pool is a treasure to this community, and it's well loved by the people that use it. It was very important that we fix the change rooms, we do some upgrading. It has a longer life, that it offers more to the public, more accessibility, so more people can use it. Fritz is one of the only pools besides Henderson on the south end of the city.
It's a very old facility. It was originally built as an outdoor pool. A lot of the configuration of the change rooms and everything is all original, so it did not meet accessibility standards at all. So we wanted to upgrade it from a life cycle perspective to make it more accessible to the community so that more people could come and enjoy it for sure.
City of Lethbridge says the total cost of the improvements was just over $1 million. The Fritz Sick Pool has been in operation for 75 years. It opened in April 1950 as an outdoor pool and was later enclosed in 1965. Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services is advising the public not to be alarmed if they see black smoke this week near Fire Station number 4. The station is located along 5th Avenue North, just east of Mayor McGrath Drive. From Tuesday to Friday of this week, crews are involved in live training exercises on the station's grounds. The exercises will take place between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily. During that time, residents may notice sporadic black smoke coming from the training facility. It is part of a controlled demonstration, and there is no danger to the public. A member of Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services is going to be heading to Alabama to compete at the World Police and Fire Games in just a couple of weeks. Patrick Barry will represent Canada and the city of Lethbridge in mountain biking, where he previously placed 4th in Winnipeg 2 years ago. The World Police and Fire Games features over 60 events with competitors from over 70 countries. Barry says he's been biking for all of his life and tries his best to find time to train outside of his long night shifts as a firefighter.
The competition is always really good and really high, and going back after I did Winnipeg 2 years ago, I just kind of want to have a really good race and improve on my time the last time, and just meet all kinds of first responders down there and just have a lot of good fun. It's always tough to balance kind of night shift work and day shifts and stuff with training. Sometimes coming off a night shift, it's always difficult to get some training in, but maybe sometime in the later afternoon after some sleep at home, and just kind of finding that right home balance too with kids and school and activities and training, trying to train about 7 to 10 hours or so a week. And the nice thing is too that we have the opportunity to stay fit and work out at work as well. So there's always the nice opportunity to be able to, just be able to stay fit as a firefighter, and then kind of work that into my training plan as well. I'm feeling really strong, really fit, and probably the strongest I've been on the bike in many, many years. So looking really forward to the race and just see how I do.
Barrie will participate in short track and Olympic cross-country events, with the games scheduled to take place from June 27th to July 6th in Birmingham. Members of both Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services and the Lethbridge Police Service are gearing up for this year's Battle of the Badges, a charity softball game. The friendly matchup will see LPS and LFES members pitted against one another at Spitz Stadium on a Friday the 27th. The event's meant as a celebration of first responders, and the funds raised will go towards various local fire and police charities in the city.
We are very fortunate here at Spitz Stadium, Lethbridge Bulls and Under the Lights Entertainment reached out to the firefighter charities a couple years ago to get this initiative going. They wanted to really celebrate the first responder community here in Lethbridge, gathering LPS and LFES members here on the field, celebrate in some friendly competition and raise awareness for first responders. And it just really brings us together on the field and recognizes that community service. All the money raised from this baseball game, I'll speak with the firefighter charities. We are a local charity within town, so we're raising funds that we're going to donate throughout the year, just worthy local causes, and just try to keep everything here in Lethbridge.
I hope it has an enormous impact for the charities. We're working for the South Zone Cardiac Center with the Lethbridge Regional Hospital Foundation. So we're hoping that we can provide them with some funds and some support for members of the community. It has nothing to do with the first responders or any benefits to them, but for the people in our community who really are in need. We're hoping this has an impact for them.
A tailgate party will start at 5 o'clock, and that'll feature barbecues as well as a live DJ, beer gardens, and other family-friendly activities before first pitch at 7 o'clock. The Edmonton Oilers face a must-win situation tonight in Florida if they want to stay alive in the Stanley Cup final. They trail the Florida Panthers in the best of 7, 3-2. And while we know hockey players have their superstitions, so do some hockey wives, as we learned from Connor McDavid's wife, Lauren.
I'm definitely superstitious, so while I'm watching the game, I need to stand in like a specific place, and if I move around and they score, like I have to get back into my spot. So I'm superstitious in that way. I think all the girls are superstitious in that way. Like there's specific places that we've seen the game that we won't go to again because if they lost the game. So we're all very superstitious. That's our way of feeling like we have a little control. I try not to do that too much, but yeah, I definitely can get a little superstitious during the games. The fan base has like grown so much even from the time that he's been on the team till now. And I mean, I think that if you're in Alberta, you're living in Edmonton, you're just automatically a hockey fan. And it's so cool to see a city just have an identity around hockey and like rally around the team. So it's very cool to see that, and I think there's an extra sense of pride around hockey playing here. I think it would be so cool to win here because the fans are just amazing, and there's nobody better in the entire league, I think, for fanship. And yeah, I think it's really cool to play here in a place that's so passionate about hockey.
And if the Oilers win tonight, it'll be back to Edmonton for a wild Game 7 on Friday night. Coming up, we'll take a look at the forecast. Here's the weather forecast for Lethbridge. A mix of sun and cloud today. Gusty west winds, high 27. That's well above normal for this time of year. Our normal high is around 23 degrees. Partly cloudy tonight, a low down to 8. We start Wednesday sunny, but that will change to a mix of sun and cloud in the afternoon. Gusty west winds as well, 20 to 40 kilometers an hour. Sunny again Thursday, high of 27, and then we see the change coming on Friday. Cloudy and cooler, a high of only 16. We will see some showers on Friday night heading into Saturday, and then the rain more persistent on Saturday. Again, a high of only 16, but look at those overnight lows. It's going to be chilly for sure. High of only 10 on Sunday, and then the overnight low dipping to 5 degrees. A little bit of a correction on Monday. Taking a look at the almanac, average high for this time of year, 23 degrees. Our average low is 9. The record hot day set in 1961, a high of 32 degrees. Record low day was 1926, plus 2 on this day in that year. Sunrise, 5:23 today, sunset at 9:42. And looking at the forecast across the country, starting on the west coast, some rain, so that is good news for firefighters battling blazes in Squamish, high of 19 in Vancouver, Victoria with a high of 20. Looking into Alberta, Edmonton with a high of 22, Calgary with a high of 23. As we move further across the prairies, looking at Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, a mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers late this afternoon. There was a risk of some thunderstorms late this afternoon as well, a high of 22. 26 in Regina, and then really good news in Winnipeg, although it's 25 degrees, which is fine temperature-wise. They're getting some rain, and that is good news in light of the wildfires that have been burning in Manitoba. As we move into central Canada, hot and humid in Toronto. Mix of sun and cloud today, a high of 29, but when you factor in the humidity, with the humidex, feels more like 32, and the UV index is at 9 or very high, so just careful if you're outdoors in the Toronto area. Some showers in Montreal and Ottawa, so it could be sticky there as well. You see those temperatures, 28 in Ottawa, 29 in Montreal, and there are some thunderstorms in the forecast in Montreal. And then as we move into the Maritimes, showers in Halifax, some gusty south winds, a high of 20, high of 15. It's going to be closer to 15 along parts of the coast. Fredericton with some showers, 23 degrees for the high. And then we see a partly cloudy sky in St. John's, a high of 20, 24 in Charlottetown. In business news, a joint investigation by Canada and the UK has found that lack of appropriate safeguards led to the data breach 2 years ago at the genetic testing company 23andMe. Canada's Privacy Commissioner and the UK Information Commissioner say the breach affected almost 7 million people, including nearly 320,000 Canadians. As a result, the UK is imposing fines on the company worth more than $4 million Canadian, but Canada can't lay any fines.
Commissioner Edwards has the authority to issue fines and orders. This is something that exists broadly around the world in privacy authorities, and it is something that is necessary. Unfortunately, Canadian privacy law does not yet provide this to me. It is something that I have been advocating for since my appointment. We had proposed law reform in the last Parliament in Bill C-27, and I hope and expect that this new Parliament will be turning its attention to remedying this and giving us the ability to issue orders and fines. And you can see in a case like this, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of things where time is of the essence, where there are real consequences, this is a gap. That being said, this is one of the many reasons why we are leveraging international collaboration with partners around the world and also around Canada so that we can maximize our impacts. And I will continue to use all the tools that I have, but I need more and better ones.
23andMe sells testing kits that use a customer's saliva sample to uncover genetic information through DNA analysis. The company filed for bankruptcy in March, but just last week it was announced that a nonprofit led by 23andMe co-founder Anne Wojcicki would purchase the company, the troubled company, for $305 million US. A new TD survey has found that 87%, or rather shows that Canadians may be more adept with artificial intelligence than they believe. The survey found 87% of 2,500 Canadians who were polled indicated they were comfortable utilizing, learning, and adapting to new technologies. But only 3% of respondents gave themselves an A grade in proficiency using AI, while 40% awarded themselves a C grade. The survey also found trust in AI was relatively low. And now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 27 points to 26,541. The Dow was down 299 points to 42,215. The S&P 500 was down 50 to 5,982, and the Nasdaq was down 180 to 19,521. West Texas Intermediate oil was up $3.38 to $75.15 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 12 cents to $3.86 US. Gold was down $7.90 to $33.80.50 US an ounce, and silver was up 72 cents to $37.10 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.76 per bushel, barley is at $6.95, canola is at $16.85, and corn is at $7.70 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was down $3.77 to $223.25. Feeder cattle August contract was down $6.87 to $303.35, and Lane Hawk's July contract was down 15 cents to $111.65. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 73.10 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the G7 leaders are wrapping up their summit in Alberta with a series of statements, but no joint communique. Instead of the usual lengthy statement outlining shared views, the joint statements cover issues ranging from transnational repression and migrant smuggling to AI and quantum computing. Coming up next, Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilly gives us an update on what it will take for Canada to make a trade deal with the U.S., and he also looks at Mark Carney's rising popularity. Stay tuned for that and more. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Well, the eyes of the world are on Alberta this week with the G7 summit taking place in Kananaskis. And after all the handshaking and photo ops, then it's down to business behind closed doors. Now, we know that President Trump left and returned to the White House to deal with growing tensions in the Middle East. But before he left, Trump did talk about trade, and particularly trade with Canada being one of his top priorities. Brian Lilly is a columnist with the Toronto Sun, regular contributor here on Bridge City News, and he joins us now. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, last week you were still holding out hope for a new trade and security deal between Canada and the United States. After this meeting between Trump and Carney, the Prime Minister's office is now saying they're hopeful for maybe a deal within the next 30 days. So what happened to, we went from a deal being close to maybe next month?
Yeah, things get in the way. People get distracted. Last week I had Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, who Trump recently appointed as his ambassador to Canada. I had him on my Full Comment podcast, and I asked him about the reporting that I was doing that said a deal is really close. He didn't deny any of that, said he couldn't say anything, couldn't get out ahead of the president. But he said, with any negotiations, things can go wrong. At that point, I recorded on the Friday, things were still going well. It had gotten to the point where Trump and Carney were talking personally. They were calling each other, trying to hammer this out. And of course, we had the Elon Musk Trump breakup. You had rising tensions in the Middle East. You had a president that was focused elsewhere. So all of that is a possibility. Or as Ambassador Hoekstra said, sometimes you get near the end of negotiations and it's just that one thing. I mean, think about buying or selling a house. It can be one small thing that derails a whole deal. And so we don't know for sure where that's at, although Trump did give a little bit of an idea as he was speaking with Mark Carney.
Yeah, yesterday during their meeting, Trump said he and Carney have differing views, and Trump said he's a tariff guy and always has been. So will this next deal see tariffs on Canadian goods that we don't currently have?
It could. In fact, I'm not sure how we don't end up like that. Now, is that a good option for us? No, but it could end up being the only option. Trump just announced the details of the trade deal that he secured with the United Kingdom. That was announced back on May 8th. They had a signing ceremony in Kananaskis, and then the details were released on the White House website. And there are tariffs in there for the UK, 10% on autos, 10% on other goods. So it's a much lower tariff than the 25 to 50% he's talking about on things like aluminum and steel. There's a change in who can own steel or aluminum plants that are going to sell into the United States. For a while, there were a lot of Russian owned businesses. In fact, at one point, the steel mill in Regina in Saskatchewan was owned by a Russian. So they're going to have issues with things like that. They want to look at everything through a national security lens, especially on goods like steel and aluminum that are key to their military. So, there's a lot going on. This is not a full renegotiation of NAFTA. This is a high-level deal. But yeah, Trump was adamant that he's all about tariffs. Carney, Ambassador Christine Hillman, who was there, is adamant that there not be tariffs. But, how do you arrive at a deal if both sides are adamant? Which side is going to end up giving in? Well, we rely more heavily on them for trade than they do with us, you can see where that might go.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Western Premier. Some of them speaking out this week. Alberta's Danielle Smith and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe both saying that they remain positive that Carney and he'll follow through on his pledge to build, energy infrastructure like pipelines. But do you think they're being a little maybe overly optimistic, or some political games being played here?
I think they have to be optimistic at the moment. The whole country seems to be giving Mark Carney the benefit of the doubt. And he hasn't said no to them yet. He hasn't, engaged in actions that show that it's a no. And so I think both of them are looking at the situation and saying, okay, well, let's play ball for now. We're getting good words. We're getting promises of good actions in the future. Let's play along. If they were both sitting back in their respective capitals sulking and throwing insults at the prime minister, that wouldn't get them anywhere. It wouldn't help Alberta, it wouldn't help Saskatchewan, and they're trying to look out for their people in their jurisdiction. So I think, would I call it political games? No. Would I call it smart politics? Absolutely. They're taking the right stand at the moment, and what stand they take could change based on what Prime Minister Carney does in the future.
Speaking of people giving Carney the benefit of the doubt, some polling showing that this may be impacting Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. Their polling is dropping. The support seems to be dropping in the polls. How do you interpret that?
Well, one poll has Carney's approval rating at 67%. So there's an awful lot of people who are saying, all right, we like what we see so far. I keep saying, the old adage, devil's in the details. And Carney has given us a lot of nice words. He's given us action on the military. You have to give him credit for that. That's long overdue. He did that. Is he going to get a trade deal with Trump? That would have been a feather in his cap if he was able to get a deal last week, just ahead of the G7. He would have been riding so high right now. But that didn't happen. So will he get a deal? What kind of a deal? At this point, though, like Premiers Smith and Moe, Canadians are sitting back and saying, all right, yeah, you're fine. Now, in terms of party support, latest Nanos poll has the Liberals still about where they were, low to mid 40s in terms of popular vote, and the Conservatives down at, I believe it's 32%. Pierre Poilievre's preferred prime minister numbers falling. This is not great for the Conservatives at this point.
Of course, we know Bill C-5 has been introduced in the House of Commons. That's, of course, the bill promising big national projects being built. And it's come under fire from all the opposition parties and even from within Carney's own party. Do you think the bill's going to pass before the end of the week when Parliament starts its summer break?
He promised that this would be law by Canada Day, which means it would have to pass the House of Commons this week. The Senate sits an extra week, or at least an extra few days, to tidy up anything left behind for them by the House of Commons, and then it has to get royal assent. It is not looking good at the moment. Will one of the parties change their mind or cave, hold their nose and vote? Will people suddenly have a flu and not be there when the votes happen? All of these things are possible. But this is a bill that is so far-reaching in the powers that it grants the governments. Some saying that it will allow the federal government to ignore or bypass any existing federal law in the name of getting these projects built. You might say, yeah, let's get it built fast, but at what price? And how, once this is on the books, you'd have to pass a different law to repeal it. How much power do you want to give to the Prime Minister's office, which essentially is what this would do? So you've got the New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois against it. You've got the Conservatives asking questions. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, who has been a Liberal MP for a long time, he was going to step down, spend more time with his family. Mark Carney put him in cabinet. So he said, I'm going to run again after all. Then the election happened. He won again, but he didn't get in cabinet. He's been very critical about it. But there's a bit of internal party politics there. And Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, a Toronto Liberal MP, is eyeing the job of Ontario opposition leader for reasons that escape me. It's not glamorous. It doesn't pay very well. But, there might be positioning on his part. I could see the bill passing maybe with some amendments. Otherwise, they might have to sit into the summer to get this passed.
Let's talk a little bit about some other debate in the Commons today. Apparently, there's some debate going on about the government deadline on the availability of gas-powered vehicles. Tell us a little bit about that.
This is their mandate to be all electric by 2035, and starting next year, a certain percentage of vehicles have to be electric, zero emission. Actually, it doesn't have to be electric. Maybe you come up with a new technology. It has to be a zero emissions vehicle, and the industry has been saying for a long time, even before Donald Trump was elected and got rid of a similar mandate in the United States, that this was not achievable, that this would put too much strain, that the public is not ready to go to a complete fleet of zero emission vehicles, and they've been pushing for a change. The industry hasn't said you've got to get rid of this completely, but they have said you've got to at least delay it because we won't make it otherwise. The Conservatives, they want this scrapped. They promised that they would allow you to buy whatever kind of vehicle you want. Trump got rid of this in the United States. That takes away a lot of the reason for industry to invest in this technology, to push it the way that the current Canadian federal law would allow. So the Conservatives want this scrapped. That's part of the motion. That's going to be debated and voted on later tonight after the broadcast. But, it's most likely going to fail because the NDP, the Bloc, and the Liberals are all still supporting this idea, which only seems to be popular in California.
Today is also the first day that Damien Couric, the Conservative MP who represents Battle River Crowfoot, can resign in favor of Pierre Poilievre running in that seat. Why did it take so long? When do you think maybe we could see the by-election there?
So it's just following all the different rules, how many sitting days he had to be there, how many days after the writs were returned could this happen? All of these little intricacies that are part of the law. So he can now resign his seat. Will he do it today or later in the week? Not sure. The Prime Minister could call a by-election, I believe, as early as this Sunday, if not within the coming weeks. They are most likely called on a Sunday. And then the by-election would most likely happen. I believe timeline we're looking at is, actually, you must have to wait a little bit because the timeline I heard was early August by-election. If you called it this weekend, that would put it into late July. So it'll be this summer at some point, and Prime Minister Carney has said he won't be playing any games, but there are just a lot of little rules and regulations that govern all of this, and that's why it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen before he came and took his seat. If you remember, there's a guy who was appointed to Trump's cabinet for half a second named Matt Gaetz. He was a congressman from Florida. He resigned his seat before the House of Representatives even came back from the election because their rules are different. This is just a case of following the rules.
Always the red tape. Brian, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time. Thanks today.
Thank you.
Brian Lilly is a columnist with the Toronto Sun, regular contributor here on Bridge City News.
Poverty and hunger continue to be a serious problem in many nations around the globe. Now, thankfully, there are some amazing people in the world who are doing something about it, including some folks right here in Lethbridge. Joining us today is Dr. Daniel Zapula. He is the lead pastor of Mid-City Church here in Lethbridge, also an archbishop in the Communion of Evangelical Episcopal Churches, and the founder of Bridges of Hope. So good to have you with us, Daniel.
Hello, so good to be with you.
Always good to have you on. bridgesofhope.ca. Daniel, can you explain what your organization is all about?
Well, we Bridges of Hope is an international network of development agencies, and we connect with like-minded agencies in order to bring about profound change in the world and in order to alleviate poverty and hunger.
Mm-hmm. So people come to you, right? I mean, and they get some help to get their charitable organization started, and there's probably a lot that goes into that. I mean, there's some government red tape typically that needs to be, done, and you also offer some leadership coaching and training in how to market their organization and how to raise funds. That's a big part of it, right? All this kind of stuff, helping people around the world takes money.
It does take lots of money, and indeed, what we do, again, we network with like-minded agencies. We do have many and various projects and our we have a board of director that oversees the organization as well, and we partner with churches, other NGOs, and then we have some people who they're just like-minded people who really have, some of them want to invest in a different area, in a specific area. Maybe say you are a foundation who want to invest in a particular area of the world, maybe South America, and so we network together to get there. And there are some organizations and some people who want our help to help them register their charity and so on. That too, I do spend a lot of time personally helping them, walk them through that, and coaching people in fundraising, simplifying fundraising, and teaching them how to raise funds, so we make fundraising simple, because every Canadian, every American, everyone around the world want to make a difference, and there is a way to collaborate and make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of the countries you're working in right now?
Like Canada is one thing. You heard about Youth One, and that's one.
Yeah, Youth One right here in Lethbridge. Yeah.
Yes, and again the youth, and then in Carlson we have something called Epics Youth. They see incredible amount, like hundreds of youth per week. They're fed and cared for. We help them integrate, and we create a healthy environment for them to connect with mentors. And we help them with their homework if they need homeworks, and some of them are just hungry. We feed them as well. In Brooks, we have another center there for youth. It's called OYO, One Youth Center. It's really incredible about providing mentorship for young people in that community, and our work is not just in Canada. Our work is also in the United States, and it is also, same thing, same program in the United States as well as in places like in West Africa, East Africa, Central, pretty much about 30 different countries that we have been able to network with and to touch. And we are seeing an incredible difference again. And recently, one of the I launched a new program called Healthy Child Africa. And Healthy Child Africa, the idea was to focus on ending hunger, because I believe poverty we will always have with us. It's nearly impossible to end poverty, and it's so relative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of want to eliminate the extremes, because you don't want to see people dying, but there's always going to be a need there, right? Jesus speaks of that, right? The poor you'll have with you always, right, in that sense. But it's up to us, though, to, get involved and do something about it, right? So you mentioned a scarcity of food in some cases, or water, clean water anyway. And so that's a very real need that needs to be met. And it probably goes deeper than that. There's of course, spiritual needs as well, right?
Absolutely, and that's it. Poverty it could be a multi-generational, multi-system. So we will have it with us. Like it could be spiritual poverty. Some people they impoverish when they impoverish many ways. We believe, as a pastor, I believe with meeting Jesus, the way of Jesus is the best possible way of being and living and becoming. And I believe when people don't know the Lord, they do suffer. And it's something that there's so much liberty that comes when people meet Christ as their personal Savior. Where spiritual poverty can manifest in various forms. Obviously, when when people spiritually famished, they try to feed from all the wrong places. It could be religion, it could be the internet, it could be addiction, it could be all those forms. But in Christ, there is liberty, there is freedom that people get. But there is also a different form of poverty. For example, in families, we have impoverished more and more. Mom and dad are separated and not there for their kids. And we impoverish as a community, as a society. Spiritually, morally, politically, we're bankrupt. But there is something, and poverty, we got to fight it. We know it will be here until Christ comes. But there is something that we can do. We can overcome and eliminate hunger. That, in fact, I believe it is immoral to not eliminate hunger in the world today. We have everything necessary to feed every child, every person in this world. It's immoral to not do so. And that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about Healthy Child Africa. And that it's a time for us to begin feeding our kids. You know, I remember growing up and sometimes just going and going to, in the side of a road when you're so desperate and see the food being sold there, maybe rice and beans. And, you know, sometimes, but for 27 cents, you can get that. So that's why
That's amazing. So you're saying 27 cents, like a day, you can feed a child in Africa?
No. I'm saying for a bowl of just rice and rice and beans. It's 27 cents that meal. So if I'm hungry, that's it. So, but imagine this. So Healthy Child Africa have been just created to be able to address precisely that, and that is, what if you can buy a meal for somebody for 27 cents? You know, but just think about the concept. If we can use it, even though that term, I'm just using it, 27 cents, that means for $27, you can, that's 100 meal.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. You think about, okay, you know, maybe I won't go to the movie this weekend. I'll instead, it's not that we can never go to movies and never eat out, but wow, that small amount makes it very doable. And if they can, I can do that. I can do more than that. So, where would people go? Say right now, saying, okay, I want to help fight poverty, help fight hunger through what did you call it? Healthy Child?
Happy Child Africa. You go to Bridges of Hope and you just say, feed a child. It's just, and it will take you to the Healthy Child Africa. It's just on there you can actually provide. It's $100. That's $27. That's 100 meal. What if in the next 4 months, many of us can decide, at least it's a campaign right now. I want to feed 1 million. I want to raise 1 million meals in the next 90 days. And that is, if people can actually give us 1,000 meal, 10,000 meals, a business can actually help us. And even your channel can actually, it will be good if your channel can give us at least 1,000 meals. It's not that complicated, 27 cents a meal. And we get to feed people, and we got to also organize camps for them and help them find. Some of them we work with churches, our partner churches. Sometimes we can have Bible camps, in the summer for them. We can have a moment where people can gather and have fun together and be mentored through life's difficulty. The world is a dangerous and violent place, and I believe we can all make a difference.
Okay. Check it out at Bridges of Hope, Healthy Child Africa. There's lots of different views on what causes poverty, kind of what's, the roots of so many of these issues here. How do you see it?
First, I think poverty is a business.
It's a business?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
I mean exactly that. It's a business. It's a profitable business. We gain a lot by keeping other people poor. Keeping other people dependent, and it's a power move. Sometimes we can end poverty. I want to say we can end hunger, but we can reduce poverty in the life of people. It's unbelievable. For example, just consider how much grain we pour out in the sea in order to manipulate the prices. Just think about that. Just think in our own street in Lethbridge, in Canada, no one in our city, like basically, no one should be famished.
Right. Yeah. No, there's lots to go around. Yeah.
Just think about it. But barely most Canadians, they said, I don't know if I got my stat right. They say for every dollar we make, most family make, they spent $1.15. That means they don't have it. Like basically, it's a system. There is a system, and there is a system that is not kindful, family-centered, and I think the world, our politics, is really not about empowering people to become self-sufficient. And I believe there's something about our politics, our economy, that keeps a loss of people at bay. Like when I meet people, they all say, "Hey, we just, if you give a man a fish,
Right.
what do you know the saying?
Yeah, give him a
He'd eat
teach him
for a
how to
day."
fish, right? Give him a fishing rod and so forth. Equip him.
And
Yeah.
if you teach him, if you give him, if you equip him, he is going to go and he's going to be able to fish for himself. That is actually disgusting. That's not true. That's absolutely ridiculous statement.
Okay.
In fact,
Why?
most people know how to fish. What most people just don't have access to the fishing pond. They don't have access to the pond. If I can teach you how to fish, but I can even give you the tool. Yeah,
So how
most
do
people
we
can
get
find
access?
tools.
How do we get access to the fishing pond for people in parts of the world where it's a bit tougher than we have it here?
Yes, and so that's how do we do that? It's by creating opportunity, and that's why at Bridges of Hope, our story and our organization focuses on creating opportunity for all, and that is hear this: in this country, we can go and borrow a little bit of money and do business, but around the world, for most people, they do not have access to capital.
Right.
If they do have access to capital, the fees and the interest rate is unbelievable. It's immoral. It is. It's not 10%. Sometimes it's 20, 30, 40, 60%. That's immoral. That's
Okay.
what I'm saying. The whole poverty is a business, and it is working. And the powerful are feasting on the less powerful.
So how do you approach it then with Bridges of Hope? Are you doing microloans, that sort of thing, to empower people to start their own businesses?
Absolutely, and that's part of that's another opportunity. And so we believe that if we empower women and men to actually start their own business, they become less dependent on the system. They do not need to be colonized. They know how to fish. They know how to do it. And to empower them, you can provide them a microloan. They pay back. and you don't have to charge 68%. You can charge 10%. So if you can loan our organization, say, $1 million, I'll pay it back.
Interesting. Wow.
We will loan it. We'll give it as loan to people, and they will start business, and they will pay you back.
I want to steer people to your website here. So thanks for sharing what you did here, Daniel. Dr. Daniel Zapula, our guest here again, president of Bridges of Hope. And I do encourage you to check out their website. You'll find a whole bunch of opportunities there for you to give an opportunity to somebody. bridgesofhope.ca. I'm Paul Arthur, and on behalf of all of us at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.